What is up, everybody? Dante Pittman here, and welcome to a special Memorial Day episode of the Power Ranger Podcast. I am your host, Dante Pittman, and over to my right, my co-host as usual, JWR from the Disney Brain.
Welcome, everybody. Hope you're all enjoying your Memorial Day weekend. Hope the weather permitted you all to cook, maybe hang out with your family, or hell, maybe even go out. Maybe perhaps maybe one or two of you watching this have saw the new Top Gun movie, something like that. Uh, Point is, it's good to have you back, and we're honored to have you join us again this week.
Yes. And also, we got another co-host down here at the bottom. That's Dragon Raider X9, also from the Disney Brain.
Hello, everyone, and happy Memorial Day, as it were.
Yep. Yep. Now, but this, before we begin, we have to do a moment of silence for all these people who have lost their lives during the war, and also do a moment of silence for all the shooting that's going on in the world. So let's mute our mics and take a moment of silence. Okay. All right. All right. We got topics to discuss here. We can discuss episode number 10 of season 2 of Dino Fury. I'm also going to give my review on Power Rangers Jungle Fury. We're going to give our thoughts on the Death Ranger. Oh my. Then we'll give our thoughts on the very first Power Rangers unleashing a brand new Mighty Morphin mystery. Ooh. And we'll discuss our favorite morphing calls from past Power Ranger seasons, including the current season we're on right now. So, all right, let's begin the festivities with discussing episode 10 of Dino Fury, which is called Losers. So, JWR, what's your thoughts on this episode here?
I enjoyed it. I don't know if I would say that I I okay I don't I guess I don't know if I would say I loved it in the way that I loved The Hunt, but I think for what the episode is trying to do, and given this show's recent success or lack thereof with these kind of more of the day episodes, I think this one turned out pretty all right.
Mm-hmm.
Good. That's good. Absolutely. Dragon Raider?
Well, as you may have expected, I have notes.
Of course.
Yep.
So first off, the episode starts off with Izzy and Ion having a little biking race over some dirt trails, and I got some delightful flashbacks to watching Ninja Storm.
I did too.
Also, I admit I got a bit of an unintentional chuckle when Izzy found the case with the spiked collar on it, because I've known more than a few people who enjoy wearing spiked collars. That was maybe funny in a way it wasn't supposed to be. And speaking of the collar, I did enjoy the part with when what was her name? Mucus grows giant and just has to just start fending off birds.
Right.
It suddenly occurs to me I don't really tend to see a lot of birds like that during giant sections. So that was a cute little scene.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And okay, this one is gonna call back very slightly to my biggest complaint about the last episode, the hunt. But this one
Mhm.
isn't so much a complaint as just something I find funny. In the last episode, as you'll recall, I had issues with the fact that the Rangers saw what appeared to be footage of a ghost making someone vanish, and they didn't seem to care very much about that person's fate. Which, but in this case, it's just they find a big briefcase of money. No one even stops to consider returning it to whoever had it before, and something about that just amused me deeply.
I think I think part of that is because we've become so used to, like, either in the early seasons and in the more recent Neo Saban seasons, we're just so used and accustomed to the Rangers constantly being portrayed as like as as goody two shoes who always try to do the right thing, or always trying to do stuff for charity, that all like or stuff like that. So in a weird way, it's kind of almost refreshing to see them act to see them do or rationalize this in the way that that a real person would. Like,
Uh
hey,
huh.
I got this. We found this briefcase of money. Let's not tell anybody and just keep it for ourselves.
And not even outside of Power Rangers, I can't think of how many cartoons I've seen where someone finds money that probably belongs to someone else, and like they have a big moral quandary that's the plot of the episode. Here, it's just a thing. But while I'm on that, I actually do kind of like where they go with that with Ion. He has a fight with Izzy because he kind of bumped into her while they were racing on bikes and she crashed. And it's a little and he's very insistent that it was an accident, and it probably was.
You know what
But
it
he was
reminds me of?
also a little frustrated during that race, so he
Right.
could have been more careless than he ought to have been.
It's very, I don't know about you, but it's very reminiscent of the episode. I want to say, I think it's the penultimate episode of Ninja Storm, Down and Dirty, where there's this feud between Blake and Hunter because Hunter thinks that Blake cheated in motocross.
Hmm, interesting. Somehow I don't. Somehow I'm having trouble remembering that one, even though it hasn't been that long since I've seen Ninja Storm. Go figure.
I think it's the one. It's like the second to last episode of the show. It's the one of the season, and it's the one where they go up against Shimatsu, Mara, and Capri and their Zords and whatnot.
Right. I remember all that, and I remember Dustin maybe thinking about not doing the same kind of motocross the other guys are. And I remember the title, just not the Blake part. Go figure.
Oh, anyways,
And anyways, um, and he goes around spending a bunch of the money, buying himself some fancy stuff. He's in a bad mood. Let's make myself feel better with some shopping. And it maybe didn't work as well as it should have. Also, as an aside, it is still. This isn't even a complaint. It's just constantly hilarious to me that there's a giant monster attack and Ion just plain did not notice.
I mean, if for nothing else, those. I mean, those must be some real quality earbuds for him to not hear and to not hear his phone, not hear any of the screaming or the explosions. Like, what brand of headphones? Like, what brand of headphones are those? Like, eh, eh,
I
like,
think we just found out why he didn't have any money left at the end of the episode.
yes, probably.
But anyway, then he runs into, I believe it's Pop Pop. He's Amelia's, the Pink Ranger's grandfather.
Yes.
He's been a recurring character in the series, and I like him. He has a sort of down to earth quality to him that really helps like contrast the wackiness that Power Rangers can get up to.
Right.
And I always enjoy when they're able to have like a pseudo mentor figures that aren't in on the whole Power Ranger secret, because you get some interesting things there.
Right.
And he just
It's
gives a nice little speech about how buying yourself something will make you feel good for a moment, but it's not actually going to solve your problems.
mhm.
Until Ion decides to just start giving his stuff away to people who he thinks would enjoy them, because he's clearly not getting much out of them at this point. And while one could make the argument that there's not that on some level these people are getting long-lasting enjoyment out of these products than Ion himself is, who bought them, I think intention counts for a lot.
I
Trying to
agree.
therapy
Right.
yourself using shopping as opposed to a show of generosity that can make a big difference. I remember when I was about 14, I was walking down my road out in the middle of the countryside, and some other guy was walking up the other way with a bike, and he's just like, "Hey, you want a bike?" I'm like, sure. That was a good bike. I really liked that. Little things like that can mean a lot.
Right. And I think
Yeah,
I think there is significance behind it, or that I think the moment is given significance when you factor in that a lot of Ion's episodes, for better and for worse, are kind of about him. I guess about him learning about maturity or responsibility.
Yeah, that's true. Because he's he's not a bad person. He's not necessarily immature, but he also isn't quite as mature as he thinks he is sometimes.
Right.
Okay, what else did I have? Oh, that whole argument between Izzy and Ion. It's an old thing, but I did really get a kick about how they're just arguing back and forth, and everyone else is just kind of looking back and forth like it's a tennis match.
Right. I right. Not you. I think that's what kind of made the scene for me more. Not so much the actual argument itself, but how everybody else just reacting to it. Like, do we intervene? Do we just say nothing? And side note, I personally kind of appreciate how I guess how it looks like Iron's about to give this lesson of the day speech, and then Izzy just stops and like we can save it for after we stop the giant monster about to destroy the city.
Yeah, that's maybe a priority.
Right.
all right. Do you have more notes, Dragon Raider?
That I do.
Go
And
ahead.
since we're talking about the Rangers, uh, oh yeah, the conversation surrounding the Primal Ultrazord. So apparently they already had an Ultrazord, and I'm just gonna throw this up front. I find them kind of underwhelming as Ultrazords, but then that's kind of a personal thing. They're fine. They're fine.
Right. Oh,
But anyway, the Ultrazord was defeated by this monster who was surprisingly powerful. Like holy crap, the action scenes in this episode. And
right.
even after the caller runs out of power and the monster shrinks back again, there is this cool POV action shot as the monsters, beating up the Rangers as they come close. I can't remember seeing that before. That is so cool.
Mm,
But anyway,
okay.
back to the Primal Megazord. They basically decide they need to use a new Ultrazord configuration to have enough power to defeat the monster. And Zato doesn't want to because it's literally the thing that got 2/3 of his team killed 65 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that shot of it using like the 3 laser beam that blasts a rift across the planet. Holy crap.
How powerful is that thing? Jeez.
Too powerful.
Holy,
Like,
holy cow!
Like if they're gonna tell me it's too powerful, show me it's too powerful, and that did it.
Right. It almost felt reminiscent of that scene in Dragon Ball Z where I guess where I think it was where Vegeta's about to blast Cell, but it only like it only obliterates half of his body and leaves like I want to say doesn't like grazes the side of the planet.
The Big Bang Attack.
Yeah, that's the one.
That was so cool. Anyway,
Oh,
so they get the Primal Ultrazord working by talking about trying to mess with the configuration to basically solve the problem, which felt very reminiscent of back in the day hearing Billy and Alpha 5 talk about how they were going to fix this problem or that problem. And I suppose it's maybe a bit quick to resolve an issue that clearly has a lot of backed up, um, I guess, trauma for Zato. But at the same time, I it doesn't feel unreasonable. They did have a lot of time to think of new things. Solon did, and the Primal Ultrazord. While I'm not super impressed by its look, like it looks fine. I just not in total love with it. But again, the action scene of it teleporting around, of it blasting the monster into the ocean, then up to space and destroying it against the moon, that was fun. I just had a lot of fun watching this episode's action scenes.
hmm.
And finally, my last notes revolve around the villains.
Okay.
One, this is something that maybe was already said in an episode I haven't seen, but Void Queen refers to herself as the mother of Sporix. And that's,
Hmm.
I wonder if that's just a title she assigns herself or if it actually means something.
Too soon to say, but though I have to imagine that it'll come into play in the last quarter of the season.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing is that last episode, Void Knight captured Tarek and has clearly sealed him awake in that little pod she was stuck unconscious in before. But her underlings don't know about that. Why?
Mhm.
Like, I'm interested.
Right.
I want to know where they're going with that.
Okay. All right. You got
Yeah,
more, or you got more? That's it.
that's it.
Okay. All right. Let's see my thoughts on this episode. This episode was fun. I enjoyed it. I love the Primal Ultrasword. I was like, wow. Yeah, it's cool, but not as cool as I see other Ultraswords. No, but the finisher where he blasts that monster into drift, drift into space. Holy crap! Talk, talk about getting overpowered. Wow. Anyway, I like how they're going with this Boy Queen saying that she's the mother of Sporix. Oh boy, this is sure. Talk about a twist of fate. Oh, I like Void Queen's design. It is very beautiful. It's
It's a
like
good
something
design.
out of it's like it's like something out of a chessboard.
There has been a broad chess motif going on with the villains.
Yeah, yeah. And this is some this is giving me like horror movie vibes.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, in some ways, yeah. But overall, this episode was fun. I won't call it the best, well, AK, in example, The Hunt. But this was a good episode. This was a great episode, nonetheless. All right, now let's move on to next topic here. It's my review of Power Rangers Jungle Fury. So, I watched this on Power Rangers official's YouTube channel. And despite a promising show, It was actually kind of disappointing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now here,
All right.
now hear me out. Now hear me out. I'm only saying that because, like, due to the Writers Guild strike in 2007 to 2008. I mean, now it has faults, but it has some moments in there. The plot was all over the place, but the Zords though were kind of fun. Well, kind of a mixed bag anyway. I like the Jungle Pride better than the Jungle Master Megazord. Don't get me wrong, it's still awesome to see the Rangers get new powers, but the Jungle Pride Megazord is just it's just cool. It's just very cool. So the villains, Daishi, Jared as Daishi. I think that was a very good choice. I liked it very well. And I asked the question on the Disney Brain server saying, what do people think of Camille and Jared's relationship in Jungle Fury? And I have an answer.
All right.
Even though this is even though the most important aspects of the relationship is already highlighted in Mr. Brain's character analysis video, which you go check out there on the Disney Brains YouTube channel. So now here's Jared's side. We already knew how much complicated Jared's life has been, as Connor showed us in the flashbacks of his past, and even though the nature in which it was altered, whether it be memory alteration or freaking time travel of all things is unclear, it still remained the fact that Jared was someone who always felt like an outcast, who felt like he was punished for doing the right thing, and someone who really wanted to get some form of love, even though he won't outright admit it. Then he tried being the rough and tough guy, the bully, trying establishing dominance of Cubs. Or maybe in his own mind trying to look after himself for once instead of backing off and being bleep at. But we know what happened, and Daishi got released, who then got attracted to Jared's more negative emotions and possessed him. When Jared met Camille, she only cared for the Daishi part originally as only being there to serve her master because of her devotion to him and her belief in her cause of animal supremacy and domination, which gave her the patience to wait 10,000 years in the palace for his return, so she only treated Jared part as a new makeover. But things started to get interesting. Camille started to fall for Daishi. That was beyond just her initial loyalty, but it was only as the narrative of Jungle Fury progresses that became more clear that it was the Jared side that she actually started to get emotional towards, because Daishi only wanted a loyal soldier to enact his will and nothing more. But it was Jared who actually cared about her as a person before anything. Even with the Daishi personality being very much present, the ambiguity of who's in the driver's seat made it all the more interesting. That's good. He's the one who actually cared about her well-being, the one who would praise her for when she did something right, the one who wanted to give her reward and respect for her undying loyalty, even when everyone he knew turned against him, the one who fought for her side. Jared started to grow attached to Camille as well because he finally started to find that unconditional caring and support that he really never got from others. He got treated like weep, including by his own masters. And as the struggle of power between Jared and Daishi grew stronger, so that Jared's more obvious feelings and attachment towards Camille. And remember, at this point, even Casey didn't know Jared was still worth saving, so Camille really was his only anchor to his humanity, even if she herself was unclear about it. So when it all came to a conclusion and Jared's personality resurfaced after refusing to attack an unarmed Casey, and his separation from his Daishi persona in the final battle, guess who's at his side even in his most darkest hour? Camille. She chose him over Daishi. She chose to stay with him and be there for him, even when he still felt like for all the terrible things he did during his time as Daishi, even when he didn't mean to. Who was there for him and saw him for who he really was? Just a troubled man who was trying to do the right thing but felt like he lost his way at some point. That to him meant more than anything in the world, because before her and Casey, there was no one in the world who ever said those things to him, even when he ever so wanted to hear them. Which is why when he decided to take the next step of his life, he wanted to do it with her of all people. Now here's the second side of all that, and that's Camille's side. Now, We don't like to call Camille evil, even during her worst times. Yeah, she may have done terrible stuff and she fought as the villain, but that's not something that defines her evil. She was a person who even after everything still had a heart. We don't know much about her life beforehand or why she's so loyal to Daishi in particular, but for now we're going to go off the assumption that she also believed in this cause and thus her loyalty to the cause in her definition met her loyalty to Daishi by any means. So after the Beast Wars, she waited for a day when she gets to resume her position and start all over again, with her undying loyalty being rewarded, and then Jared came into the picture. Initially, Camille was neutral towards it because to her it was just more as a handsome makeover for Daishi. And then and thus the fight began again. Camille acted as a general and fought against the Rangers day in and day out with a new plan every time, all to please Daishi. Sometimes she got the place she wanted, and others, not so much. This is going to be long, trust me. But I think this all truly started to crack when the overlords came into the picture and things became complicated as Camille expected Daishi to take a stand for her, and yet he didn't, which made her start to question her single-minded goal in her life, her one purpose when she wasted thousands of years for it, to be at Daishi's side they see their cause fulfilled. Was it even possible or just wishful thinking? Because here's the thing. Camille never really imagined a life outside of her typical villain role. To her, there was the life of Servant Daishi or no life worth living at all, which is why her talk with Lily became such a turning point in her character story because for the first time in her entire existence, someone told her that she has good in her and that she's not all evil, which took a while for the lesson to suck in, but it did. And that was true. She did care. She did care when Flint went missing, even though she only trash talked to him when he was around. She did care when Grisaka overtook and Jera was imprisoned, which further emphasized that her loyalty is now less towards the cause when Grisaka very much intended on, considering more towards Daishi and Daishi alone, or so she thought. Then Daishi saved her, when he could have easily let go and things started to become more complicated. Where she used to think that it's Daishi rewarding her loyalty was actually never that, but it was Jared's humanity and his appreciation for Camille's companionship, something which Daishi never cared about. And then these moments started happening more. Daishi stood up for her in front of the Phantom Beast generals and granted her the power set of her choice, protected her, showed care for her concern and well-being, thanked her. He let her sit on his throne when, as Camille pointing out, he has never really let anyone do that. And the more Camille noticed the out of character moments in Daishi, the more Jared started finding his humanity through her. And when she did actually met Jared in person, she saw all the traits from him that she wanted Daishi to do, but realized in that moment that it was always Jared. That she was rooting for the wrong side this whole time, and it was actually Jared who really does give her everything she wanted in life, on what thought she did at least. This all came to the test when Daishi and Jared separated, and she had to make a choice. When she actually saw who Daishi really was without Jared's humanity, that's when she knew what she had to do. The good in her came out when she sacrificed her phoenix powers to save Jared. Now, having lost her life's only purpose, Camille stayed loyal to the one man who always showered her with care and compassion when she was really seeking it from the wrong guy, helping him in his darkest hour, making him realize that he was good. And then she saw that when she saved her back then, which reunited Jared's humanity, and in turn was able to realize the good inside of her that Lily saw all along. Both of their journeys ended when they faced the one being responsible for all their torment and misery and coming out of it as stronger beings. Camille having embraced the good in her and helping her finding a new purpose in life that doesn't involve someone with unconditional loyalty who never gives it back, but with someone who does and gives it back. And Jared having found the person who appreciates him for who he is despite his flaws because she really saw what he is beneath all that facade. It was true that Camille did appeal to Jared's humanity, which is why when Casey arrived, Jared was finally able to break free because of the two people in the world who saw him for himself, and in turn, why the Beast Wars was finally able to come to a close. In short, Jared and Camille found something in each other that they both weren't sure they have. Because of each other, they were able to embrace the best parts of themselves and become their better people. They were able to drive away their negative parts, both metaphorically, metaphoric, both literally and metaphorically. And
Metaphorically.
thank you very much. All and found new purpose in life. I am sure when we leave them at Jungle Fairy, they'll not even know themselves what the new purpose is. But both were shown we're willing to start from scratch and find it together. This is partly why I think Camille and Jared will be excellent parents someday because of their redemption stories and the hardships they face together. I think they will be able to teach their kid a lot about lots of things and understand when they make a mistake or feel lost.
I mean, you're making it sound as if they did them getting together and procreating wasn't what did inevitably happen at the end of the series.
I know it didn't, but just put a little fan theory in there.
No, it's
And
no.
yeah,
I'm saying, I'm joking about the fact that you said it as if there's a possibility that they didn't hook up at the end after the show
yeah,
when that's almost certainly what they did.
Totally.
yeah. Woo!
And I think your that assessment or analysis is for me part of what makes Jungle Fury so of what part of what makes Jungle Fury so I guess that's part of why I love that season in particular so much.
Honestly, that was a really cool analysis.
Very.
Thank
It's
you.
been a long time since I've seen Jungle Fury, and I didn't think about things quite as much back then, so
But
I didn't quite pick up on some of this stuff. But no, you're totally right.
Right. And
so
I
let
think
me
Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
there's another part of
let
it.
me let me explain. So my thoughts on the costumes. I think I kind of like Jungle Master Mode better than their original costumes. Just Jungle Master Mode looks very cool, and and that literally meant they're full fury, and that was actually kind of cool. I love the claw boosters. They're actually pretty cool.
I'm pretty big on both sets of costumes, just because they feel noticeably different than what I usually get out of Power Rangers. Like after so many seasons, you do start to appreciate when you see something that looks fresh.
Right.
Yes, I do. I do. And I kind of like the Strike Rider. The Strike Rider is cool.
Oh, if we're talking about weapons, I really appreciate that the Rangers, particularly the first three, got very unorthodox weapons for their first go. Like, okay, I think one of them had a bow staff, but the other two had nunchucks
See,
and
that was
tons.
so okay. So Lily, the Yellow Ranger, was the one with the bow staff. My
Right?
Casey had the nunchucks, the Red Ranger,
Freaking nunchucks! It's awesome.
and Theo was the one with the tonfas. I think I actually like that it's different in both like aesthetic and just it's different from the other seasons in terms of like its aesthetics, in terms of its themes, and in terms of like the general like look and feel of it, which I think was especially kind of needed after a lot of people felt kind of I think Jungle Fury being so different than what came before it, well, not radically different, but being different, but then from what we usually expect from Power Rangers was kind of needed after the less than stellar reception of Operation Overdrive.
And like,
Which,
look, as much as I love Red Rangers with swords, and Casey does eventually get a sword,
yes,
it's just something as small as giving him a weapon I almost never see is enough to get me interested. It's still going to be Power Rangers, but you get those little sprinkles of fresh material, and that can
right,
do wonders.
right, and I mean to say nothing of RJ himself, who we could go. I guess we could always spend an hour. We could spend at least an hour the talking about RJ, both as
Oh,
like a
RJ's
ranger and
pretty
a
great.
mentor. He's great.
Yes, he is great. Can't deny on that. He's actually the saving grace of Jungle Fury, in my
Saving
view.
grace. He's the highlight.
Because one, it was starting to go downhill when RJ
Well,
came.
Eh.
Uh,
Look, it's been so long that I can't exactly debate the point because I don't remember much of an issue, but maybe I'd feel differently if I watched it now. I don't know.
um,
but but yeah, I mean, RJ was the highlight of the show. The addition of Dominic was pretty cool, and his
by the
morpher was a
way,
mixed bag to me.
by the way, speaking of the actor who played Dominic, he recently made an appearance in Stranger Things season 4. So good on him.
Well,
Huh?
oh, good on him. Good, good.
Yeah,
That's
glad he's still
cool.
getting work.
Of course.
His mor, but yeah, his morpher was a mixed bag for me. It's like it's a both a blaster and a morpher.
But that's pretty cool. What's wrong with that?
But but it is cool. I can't lie on that. I mean, but now, but after like the final episode of the season was was kind of the better episode. What's the best episode of that entire season? I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but at the end now the final fury, I actually kind of enjoyed that more.
Cool.
It was a
It's
fun
kind of
ride.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong.
great finale.
great finale. Not as epic as the other finales, but this was great.
Well, I mean, no, I'm not gonna get into that. I don't know. It's not Countdown to Destruction, but I think it ended the season pretty well.
I think
Yes.
the emotional climax of Jungle Fury mostly happened in the previous episode with Casey and Jared fighting in Daishi's palace, and after that, it was kind of almost a big blowout where they got to have fun just beating the bad guys,
Right.
and that's okay, you know.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it. So like you could Path of the so like Path of the Righteous is kind of like Path of the Righteous is like is like the finale. I won't say the finale proper, but like ties up most of the loose ends. And now the final fury is like the victory lap.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, but there were some flaws in the show, but out of
Of
all of them,
course,
I
every
say
season has
the
flaws.
biggest was the cast. The casting was a big problem. I
Hmm?
mean,
How so?
because well, Casey proves to be a rather brand Red Ranger, but he does get an interesting story arc when he loses his tiger powers temporarily. And Theo
I
isn't much better,
kind of, I
but
actually
he's
kind of, I actually especially okay. I didn't mean to cut you off like that. I'm sorry, but I was going to say that's kind of what kind of made Casey for me such an appealing and I guess refreshing Red Ranger in the first place, because because usually in these kind of shows it's he the leader is usually like the most proficient, the most proficient, the most skilled person on the team up until the Sixth Ranger shows up. He's the
and
guy
even
calling the
if
shots.
even if they're not necessarily the most skilled, they're usually one of the most driven. You know, you got your Leos or your Wesses, where
Right.
they're very clearly gung ho about being part of all this. And then you have Casey, who basically feels like he fell into this at the last second and feels very over. He feels like he has a hard time living up to his compatriots, and he's just also has some self confidence issues to work on.
Right. It's refreshing because he has to both prove to I guess to validate himself as as earning this position, but he also has to prove himself he has to prove himself not just to like Casey and I'm sorry, to Theo and Lily, but also has to live up to the example set up by the masters who are no doubt who look at just about everything that Casey does in the show with the recent downfall of Jared in mind.
all right. So, and Theo isn't much better. He spends most of his time whining about something or other.
To be
And
fair,
then,
to be fair, I kind of to be fair, I mean you're not wrong about Theo occasionally coming off as No.
Yeah.
I know. I disagree with calling him whiny per se. I like that. I like that. I like the approach they took with Theo. I like that he occasionally struggles with his own insecurities while also, but but I also like that not he was not above being I guess being a know-it-all and a smart ass, kind of like which in a way which in a way I think okay, if we could go on a tangent for a bit second, I think if we could go off on a brief tangent for a minute, I think part of what kind of made Ollie so appealing to me so early on was that he reminded me of Theo with with his sarcasm and his tendency to be a know-it-all. Like I don't know. There's just something about that I kind of like in a Blue Ranger.
I remember an early episode of Jungle Fury. It was against one of the like five poison finger guys. I remember
Uh,
there was an action scene that's supposed to be on the side of a building.
I remember
That
that
was
too.
fun.
I think
oh,
And
it's
as
Gecko.
yeah, that one. And as I recall, it's basically Theo struggling because what do you call it? He has a perfectionist streak, but but when he struggles, he really struggles. And learning to accept that and learning to work through it was a big part of it. Was a big part of that episode, and I really like that.
All right.
I admit,
But,
it's been so long, I don't have super deep insight. I
all right.
remember basically enjoying the cast, but I also don't really have too much to say about Lily.
Yeah. And
Fine,
okay. Speaking of her, and then there's Lily. Lily is by far the worst Ranger I've ever watched in
hmm?
the Power Ranger series. I
Whoa,
mean, on Morph, she's tolerable, and
that's a bold claim. More so, wait,
I'm
you
sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, we love Lily. When she's on Morph, she's tolerable. But when Battle War Morph, she has this horrible habit of screaming pretty much every line she has. I'm
I
sorry.
always
No disrespect.
I didn't. Hmm.
I kind of like that part because it reminded me of Jason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I
But
mean,
but it is kind of a scratchy voice, so I can see why that could be irritating to people.
Yeah.
I can sort of understand that. That I though I don't though I I I though to be fair, it's more prominent than some other examples, but there are other examples that I could think. There are other examples like um and that's it. I guess that's just, we'll just chalk that up as a to each their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
We already talked about. Excuse me. We already talked about RJ. RJ's the best. I don't care.
I'd say Dominic is who I consider to be the weakest member of the cast. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with him, but just in the sense of he shows up so late that there's only so much time to do stuff with him.
Right.
I
And I guess
mean,
the same thing, I guess I would apply that argument, but I like him, but he's not like I like him, but he would well I don't want to say he's irrelevant to the season because he does play a significant part in the last big chunk of the show, but he was he's fine. He's good but not great as far as sixth or I guess in this case fifth Rangers go, if that makes any
yeah,
sense.
Yeah,
yeah,
he's kind of
yeah.
the first guy I tend to forget about.
Right.
But I
Same
actually
thing with
like
the
the
Spirit
spirit.
Ranger. Yeah. Oh, you were funny. You
Yeah, I
also
was
mentioned
saying
Spirit
something.
Rangers. They're fine. They're serviceable. I like how they kind of contribute to the personal growth and
Yeah, it's a good concept.
development of the main Rangers. I think that they're pretty nifty for like. I think they're pretty nifty as far as like original as far as I want to say they're like this is the second instance of Power Rangers creating of they're the second instance of like American exclusive Rangers. The
Uh
first
huh.
being Ryan from Lightspeed the Titanium Ranger from Lightspeed Rescue.
And the Spirit Rangers
Yes.
were pretty cool.
Yeah, the
Like,
Spirit Rangers, they had a good concept, but they didn't
They
actually
didn't do a
do
whole
very much.
they they're
yeah,
significant chocolate I
as
think
I
that
recall, the three masters who the Rangers had met throughout the series got kidnapped and their chi or whatever was used to make the Spirit Rangers. And
Yes.
that did lead to a pretty good visual as the masters, mind controlled, are chained up in the dungeon and are doing the movements to do battle, and somehow that doesn't restrain the Spirit Rangers, but it's a memorable visual.
Right.
As I said, the plot was all over the place, but let me go in there. The origin episode of the show of the season was rushed. I mean, the Rangers received their
What
Jungle
way?
Master mode before RJ takes up the role as the Wolf Ranger. They were pretty much on par with him by the time he becomes one.
I never really saw that as as a negative per se. I think that I just more just saw that as as a symbol of how much their training was starting to pay off. And yet even though they had clearly grown in their skills, there were still other things they had to learn from RJ.
Alright. Alright. And I said the swords were a mixed bag.
That I'll agree with.
Oh, can I give my Zord thoughts? Because, oh boy, I have Zord
Yeah,
thoughts.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. Yeah, go
So
ahead,
I'm
sure.
going to level with you. I didn't particularly like any of the Megazords outside of the Rhino one.
The Rhino Steel Megazord. I tend to agree.
And that's
It's
simply because I find it boring for a 3 Zord combination to boil down to one forms most of it and the other two just form the legs. That
right.
doesn't excite me. I'm sorry. They're fine Megazords. They get the job done. I'm not gonna really hold that against the season because it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it was a thing.
Right.
But
I'll
what
be
I
honest.
did like,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, no. I'll let you finish.
What I did like is we talked about the masters before, and with
Yes.
each master, the ranger who trained under them would get a new weapon, and then they get a subsequent Zord that would proceed to form onto the Megazord like that same weapon. I think my personal favorite was Theo getting the War Fans because, again, War Fans are not a weapon you see every day. And then you get the big Bat Zord who forms onto the Megazord and they use the wings like War Fans. That's cool.
Yes. Easily the second bet. I was going to say that's easily the. There's only 2 Megazords in this season that I actually really like. That I am actually really. There are 2 that I really like. I don't care for most of them, but the 2 that I really like are the Rhino Steel Megazord and the Jungle Pride Megazord.
I mean, Jungle Prime Megazord was the best out of all the Megazords from that season.
Fair enough.
Because I like how it's lightly armed, which is kind of good. Which makes it great. I liked it. It's great.
It doesn't have the most exciting aesthetics, but I think the story and characters. I think the story and characters are kind of the highlight of the season.
Yeah.
And did anybody else have any other thoughts, or have we more or less exhausted it?
All right. Lastly, I'll just end this here with I'm going to mention the lack of music. Most of the fight scenes have the series' main theme playing over it, which results you hear the season's main theme 2 to 3 times per episode. While I thought the theme was horrible, but as the series progresses, it begins to grow on you.
I never had a problem with it. I personally I dig the theme song. I like how distinctly it feels how distinctly poppy and energetic it feels. I don't know if I'd call it a favorite of mine, but I enjoy it. And I enjoy pretty much any themes. I pretty much enjoy almost any theme song of the show that isn't like a cover or remix of Go-Go Power Rangers at this point. It's funny but it's hilarious. One of those hilarious and one of those things that's hilarious in hindsight. When I first watched Operation Overdrive, I could not stand that theme song. After Samurai, Megaforce, so on and so forth. Oh God, I'll take it.
All right, but anyway, So overall, Jungle Fury is certainly a disappointing series. But at the same time, it doesn't deserve the rap it gets. The story showed a lot of promise, but due to the writers' guild strike
I
in 2007,
I
it
do
just
not
failed to
agree
deliver.
with. I do not agree with that. I do think the writer's strike definitely had an effect on the show, but I do not agree with calling it a disappointment at
Okay,
all.
yeah, okay, it showed a lot of promise, but it failed to deliver.
For you, at
But
least.
with a much
Like,
stronger forecast and better pacing too, Jungle Fury could have shined. It's not the worst Power Ranger series, though we'll still give that to Turbo, but it's
mm,
far from the best. So
even
two
I
out of
just
five, disappointing.
Honestly, I'm inclined to agree more with JWR on this one. Like, I'm not trying to discredit what you're saying.
oh no, of course not.
You
Of
enjoy what
course
you
not.
enjoy, and you don't what you don't. I just
Anyway,
remember having a real fun time with it when I saw it.
Right, and I
okay.
think I don't like I don't know what the okay. So I think most people would. I don't know if any. Not if most. Not every. It's not a season that everybody would call like their favorite, but I do think it's a season that most people, generally speaking, enjoyed, remember liking. It has it. It's not usually thought of as like one of the all time best, but I think a good case could be made for it being one of the best, or at least one of the most underappreciated, especially in comparison to like what came before it. All the considering that this was around the time when Disney actively wanted the show dead, and the writer
I
strike. So
I
when you
barely saw any commercials for Jungle Fury.
yeah, there's a reason for that. That was the this was I believe the last season that aired on Jetix before that got rebranded as Disney XD.
It
And
was.
as I said before, after the I guess the disappointing reception of Operation Overdrive, that was basically the point where Disney pretty much actively wanted to kill and end the show, but they couldn't because of like they had contractual because of a contract they had with like sub with Jetix in Europe.
Hmm. Oh,
All
I
right.
do have one stray thought. It doesn't really relate to any of this
Go ahead.
specifically, but it's just something that's been on my mind for a long time. So there's a scene where I guess one of the lords or whatever, is trying to help Jared suppress his old humanity and give in to his worst instincts. And one of the scenes is a memory where he chose not to fight back against a bunch of bullies, and he let go of his humanity by going all, rage and fisting and stuff. And I've seen criticism of this scene on the grounds that maybe presenting fighting back against bullies as being an evil thing maybe isn't the best thing in the world. But I think there's a bit of context that tends to be left out in this conversation. Namely, by this point, Jared was already training in martial arts. It's already pretty clear that if he wanted to, he could hurt these children very badly anytime he wanted. And that makes me think back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and how none of the Rangers ever really beat up on Bulk and Skull because they weren't really a threat. And that's kind of how I viewed this scene. These other kids, they weren't a real threat to Jared. They were annoying, they were obnoxious, and they were jerks, but nothing was there that necessitated the use of violence. And I think that by restraining himself as a child, that was the important part. That was the moral that he was supposed to internalize, to not
That was
fight
the
just because you're angry.
that was the I guess that was there to I guess further cement or remind the audience that there was still good within Jared despite even after he had been corrupted by Daishi.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to level with you. This conversation
Excellent.
almost entirely happening because Linkara's history of Power Rangers, where his
Mm,
comment on it. Look, I like Linkara. I like a lot of what Linkara says. I don't agree with everything he says, and that's fine. We're allowed to, disagree. We're allowed to talk about why we disagree, all that stuff. And I just
Right.
wanted to get that out.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go on to our
Hopefully moving
next
on to
topic.
hopefully moving on to a less contentious topic.
Yes, this is we're gonna give our thoughts on the Death Ranger. It's a new non-binary ranger. I actually have it up. I actually have it up.
Okay, someone is going to have to
Very
explain to
alright.
me exactly what this Death Ranger is, because
No,
I've only been seeing bits and pieces over Twitter, and that's not helping.
Okay, good. All right. I want to make sure y'all can see this. Right. There it is. All right. Power Rangers reveals the Death Ranger, the new non-binary ranger. The Power Rangers are introduced the Death Ranger, a new non-binary Omega Ranger who appeared in the one upcoming one-shot from Boom. The world of
Omega
Power
Ranger.
Rangers is expanding as the brand new Death Ranger, the Power Rangers non-binary ranger, will debut in the new has debuted in a new one-shot expanding on the history of the Omega Rangers. All right, the Omega Rangers are a 1,000-year-old team who fought against some of the darkest threats in the universe. The Omega Rangers team has elemental powers, as the Yellow Ranger is powered by Earth, Blue by Water, Red by Fire, and Black by Air. However, the new one-shot will reveal a new member of the Omega Rangers as the Death Ranger, who has made his debut. Okay. All right, Power Rangers Unlimited, the Death Ranger #1 was a new one-shot that proves the secret history of the Death Ranger. Keys in the issue. The non-binary Ranger was originally part of the Omega Rangers thousands of years ago, as the heroes used their incredible elemental powers to protect against some of the most dangerous forces in the universe. Unfortunately for the Omega Rangers, the former team member was seduced by the death divine powers of the Rangers' greatest foe, leading to become the Omega Ranger. 1 year later, the Death Ranger will connect to an Omega Vault in Safe Haven. Alright, writer Paul of Lore performed that the Death Ranger is non-binary and they and them pronouns, just like the entire alien race the Green Ranger comes from does.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Okay, does it really count as non-binary if you have to include an entire alien race to justify it? I mean, I'm asking. I don't know.
I guess.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Other questions. Does any of this have anything to do with the Omega Ranger from Power Rangers SPD?
I do not believe it. I don't know. Does it?
No, I don't think so.
If it does, I think this is an original. This is an original creation for from the comics.
I mean, would it kill them to do a quick Google search on the name they came up with? Jesus.
I don't. That is weird. You'd think. Granted, I haven't read that far into the comics, so I don't know if there's a connection. But that is kind of a weird I guess oversight or like So yeah, okay, yeah, no, it's I don't. Yeah, they're two completely separate entities. The Omega Rangers are, I guess, they're their own original creation. They're basically they're ancient faction of Power Rangers. Sadly, no relation to SPD.
Okay. Does anyone know any details about them offhand? Not. I don't need to know about individual rangers or stuff, but just kind of what their deal is outside of just being ancient rangers.
Basically, they are an offshoot version of the original MMPR team, but from a different universe.
Okay.
Specifically, they were like they were introduced or hinted at during the they were hinted at during the Shattered Grid arc event.
Okay. Trying to find something.
I mean,
here.
the Death Ranger design is cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is cool.
If for nothing else, I guess it's nifty to see like what the Grim Reaper would look like in Ranger form.
I also find it kind of funny that there's a canonical Death Ranger now, considering that the Power Ranger series is usually not allowed to say that word.
Have they ever said it? I don't think they've ever said it.
I'm not convinced that they've never said it, but if they've ever said it, I can probably count it on one hand.
Right, because they always, although yeah, they I noticed that about a lot of I guess I guess older shows and cartoons aimed at children. They're almost never allowed to say death or killed or died. It's always destroyed.
And on that note, it reminds me of a little conversation on the subject I'd heard on a video some years back who was talking about Power Rangers. I sadly do not remember the name of who I was watching. So, and basically, he was saying that on the one hand, he doesn't especially like that, not because of censorship reasons or anything like that, but because to him, destroyed is dehumanizing. Objects get destroyed, humans die. But he also feels that in a lot of seasons, Power Rangers is able to kind of get past that due to, the story, the acting, the general writing. They're able to convey what needs to be conveyed, even if they have to say it slightly clunky.
Right.
I think it's true.
Okay.
And if you think about
Makes
it, most of the villains of the Power Rangers face themselves are not human. So I guess you could argue that it's kind of fitting that their enemies use dehumanizing terms.
Well, true. I mean, I'd agree, but they tend to do it themselves too.
All right. Fair enough.
I don't know that I have
Okay.
much else to say.
So
about
we have. All right, JWR. Do you have any more?
No, not much. I mean,
No.
I like the design. I guess we'll have to see what their deal is when we see them and when we well nice. I like the design. I dig the look and story behind this. Will I guess, and I'll save my future thoughts, my full thoughts for when the actual comic comes out.
All right, makes sense. All right, now we'll discuss the very first Power Rangers unleashing a brand new Mighty Morphin mystery. I
Now,
actually
what
have
is
it up.
this?
Say that again.
All right, the very first Power Rangers unleashing a brand new Mighty Morphin mystery. Let me.
What is that now?
A brand new what?
Let me
A
tell you
what
this.
now? Is this a comic? It's like
There you
something. Oh, okay, it's a
Yeah,
comic.
All right, there we go. The very first Power Rangers just
Power
unleashed
Rangers
a brand new Mighty
universe.
Morphin mystery. Yes, the ancient Morphin Masters have finally reached the end of the original story, but it has opened up a whole new mystery in the present. The Power Rangers have uncovered some truly shocking secrets about their universe over their nearly 30-year history, but their ancient predecessors, the Morphin Masters, have just revealed something more intriguing than ever before. The very first Power Rangers have fought tirelessly to stave off Dark Spectre, pushing themselves to the brink of destruction. Thankfully, these legendary heroes have also discovered the full extent of their powers, giving up their former lives to save the universe. They've also created a mystery that still hasn't come to light even after thousands of years. The Morphin Masters have stayed ahead of Dark Spectre's army, but the heroes couldn't stop his influence from reaching between realities. In Power Rangers Universe number 6, the Morphinons Guild allowed Dark Spectre to twist them into a dark vessel. During the ensuing battle, the Morphin Masters realized that the only way to stop Dark Spectre was to become conducts for the morphing grid. The Morphin Masters give up their lives as they have known them before energizing as something new entirely. Not only were the Morphin Masters transformed into the near all-powerful emissaries, but their numbers opened up the door for a new mystery.
All right, so
While all the
short
Morphin
version.
Masters underwent the same dramatic transformation, not all of them are quite as recognizable as their king. Making sure. Okay. Alright, while all the Morphin Masters underwent the same dramatic transformation, not all of them are quite as recognizable as their counterparts. Up until now, fans of the Boom Studio edition of the Power Rangers saga were only aware of the emissaries free, specifically the yellow, red, and blue emissaries, who have been integral to the story throughout. And Horse himself and Fyro becoming the emissaries that readers already know isn't all that surprising, that the fates of the others are still in the air. After sending the Phantom Ranger on his way, the new created emissaries all departed for their own respective missions. In the case of Sev and Talasi, the brothers decided to keep watch for any sign of Dark Spectre. Unfortunately, their absence in the present doesn't imply they were particularly successful. At the best, the two disappeared into the grid of another unexplored corridor of reality. At worst, they fell to Dark Spectre, possibly even becoming the most powerful Emperors that nearly destroyed Earth. As possible as that is, it doesn't seem particularly likely considering the ways in which the Emperors and emissaries' presence in our universe were tied to each other's lives and depths. Regarding that mystery, chances are that another layer is waiting to be peeled back before readers can get any concrete answers. Of course, they weren't the only emissaries to disappear. Whew. This is a long one. Leia, who became the Pink Emissary, is the last of their rank staff appeared for the first time in the Power Ranger universe. And there's no telling where she went. From the looks of things, she continued on her own path to safeguard the universe from Dark Spectre's forces, though her words imply that she didn't stop there. If Leia's final moments in the issue are to be believed, then the emissaries' reach extends well beyond just one reality. That means that the other emissaries might be still out there in another time or universe entirely, especially when they already exist in nearly intangible states. It's hard to guess where the pink, black, and green emissaries could have gone. What is certain, however, is that they have been absent from the presence for far too long. And with the threat of Dark Spectre looming overhead once more, the Power Rangers that fans know best have precious little time to discover the truth if it is ever going to save them.
Okay, so the short and sweet version of it for some of our viewers is that
Please,
he's basically
because I kind of glossed over halfway into that.
okay. So the short version is that that article is basically going over the events of the last issue of Power Rangers Universe, which came out last week, and which revealed that the comic itself was just a big an origin story for the Morphin Masters as.
Okay, in that case, I guess I'd like to talk about the Morphin Masters for a second, because they've kind of been my most questionable aspect of Power Rangers Dino Fury thus far.
I would have to more or less agree with that. It is nice to see them pulling from the comics, but depending, okay, they have to do something with them in the last couple of episodes, just so that their presence doesn't feel so jarring. Because again, as nice as it is to see them pulling from the comics, their scant presence throughout the show. Well, I wouldn't even say scant. They have. It's not like they just appeared once and we never saw them again, because they are this Dino Fury is making them a vital season. They're making them a vital part of the season, but I am hoping that this is not the last we see of them, and the only time they're ever addressed in the series, because given that they're a newer creation, there are still either questions that need to be answered or gaps that need to be filled in.
And I haven't read the comics, so as far as I know, the Morphin Masters are just these 5 or maybe 6 ancient dudes in white who float around making Power Ranger stuff happen, like the Zordon for Zordons, I guess, except they don't talk as much.
Right.
And I don't exactly know what their deal is going to be. But I also have some reservations moving forward. I've talked about this a bit on the server before, but their good utility is they can serve as a sort of unifying force for the disparate parts of Power Rangers. They make a good origin for the Ninja Nexus Prism from Ninja Steel. You could even handily wave over some old questions like why did Gosei only wake up when the War Star aliens appeared and not any of the various other stuff that happened that might necessitate some problems. Well, I guess the Morphin Masters are taking care of that.
Right.
But the downside, the potential downside, is something I've heard described for the Marvel Ultimates universe.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this.
Now, again, I'm not exactly a comic guy, so I'm mostly pulling from other people. But the way I understand it, the Ultimates universe was supposed to be a alternate continuity for Marvel that kind of did not require you to be up on decades of comic continuity to be able to enjoy. Sort of a fresh start.
That was the initial appeal of that universe.
But one of the things they did, or so I'm told, is that a lot of different things, both heroes and villains, end up tying back to a relatively small number of things, like Oscorp or what have you.
Right.
And paradoxically, by tying things together, it started to make the world feel smaller.
Exactly.
Instead of a universe of endless possibilities, you just kind of keep going back to the same source.
Right. I guess another example of that is, I guess, how the more, I guess, for another example, we could point to, and I'm not going to get too much into this, but like how a lot more time, like how in a lot of these more recent Star Wars projects, there's lots of connections to, oh, this is how that happened. These people know each other. Like the more it's nice that it's cool that they're all collected, but when everybody knows everybody, it kind of makes the universe feel a little bit smaller. And for going back to Power Rangers, by the more they the more they bring the comics into it, as nice as it is, the more dependent, like the more the show makes you dependent on catching up on all the comics and certain issues of the comic.
Yeah, straight up. If the show reaches the point that I have to start reading the comics to know what's going on, I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like you don't. Yeah. The more you do that, the more your audience feels like you're making them do homework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is like
okay.
And to be fair, the show Dino Fury, to its credit, has done a decent enough job of explaining the presence of the Morphin Masters, so that if anybody, like, they've at least explained who they are, what they do. It's not like they just show up and like, hey, hi, like, oh look, it's the Morphin Masters, and then they just disappear. Like they at least put some effort into tying them into Zato's origin story. But my hope is that moving forward, both in Dino Fury and beyond, if they are going to pull things from the comics, my only hope is that they do so in a way that people who have not read those comics can understand that, and that while also not reiterating what you said. Reiterating this for people who have read the comics, or I guess changing the origin story, or making sure it's consistent and making sure, but also making it digestible for newer people. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. All right. Whew. That'll be it. All right. Our final topic of today is favorite morphing calls. Ooh. Favorite morphing calls. So we'll just each discuss what our favorite morphing call is. Why is your favorite? Yeah. So I'll let JWR go first, of course.
I don't really know if we should I don't really know I don't know if I have them organized in a way that's like I'm thinking of how I want to do this, because I don't just want this to be just us listing off the morphing calls. I maybe hope I would like us to, I guess.
I have an idea, I think.
Sure.
Go ahead.
At this point, why don't we just move through the morphing calls season by season, and we can each give a little blurb on what we think about them, whether we like them or not.
Right.
Sounds good.
So, in that case, let's start at the very beginning. It's morphin' time!
Oh, that was nice. It's good.
Yeah, very nice.
I did
I
the hand
have
motion and everything.
right.
Let's-
Wait, give me a second. Give me a second.
Oh,
Not yet.
And this one is always going to be a mixed bag now because as I'm
Sorry
sure
about that.
you were going to bring up,
gotcha, everywhere.
Oh yeah, I'm
Continue.
fine. I'm fine. I'm back. I just had to talk with somebody in the background. So, I I have sort of mixed feelings on its Morphin time, mostly, but not for the reasons you might think. I, on the one hand, I, I can understand. I have admittedly kind of grown over the course of after hearing it 11 years in a row. I have kind of started to grow a little bit
Fatigued.
sick of it, just a little bit. Having said that, though, I can understand why that has become like why that sort of become a tradition again, because it's the first morphing call, it's the most iconic, and I mean, if you're gonna keep a tradition, it makes sense that they'd want to keep that tradition going.
There you go.
And you know what? As someone who was around for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it was generally pretty cool hearing it back then.
Yeah.
Even that one time where Billy gets to say it and he's like, "It's time for molecular transmutation."
Oh, that was fun.
That was funny. I gotta admit.
And honestly, for me, it's just kind of funny how perspectives can change. Because I remember when I was a kid, I got annoyed that they stopped saying it because I was a dumb kid. But now they don't stop saying it, and I'm like, I'd like to hear some new stuff every now and then.
I do too. Like I want to say it was I want to say it was either around Turbo or in Space where they stopped where they just either said ready and then just said and then just said the catchphrase, and well and you know I guess this is more this I don't know if I'm going ahead, but because actually no, I don't think we are because they use this all the way up through Mighty Morphin and Zeo, and I think they might have said it once or twice during Turbo. So I guess this still kind of counts as it's Morphin time. So I guess it's not too much of a tangent, but I will just say that though I am hoping for I'm hoping for variety in the future, but
Um,
I'm not going to let that
Yeah.
that doesn't over as I have grown a little sick of I'd like some variety, but that does not take away from what made the phrase so iconic in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And like at the end of the day, the Morphin call is not a make or break thing.
It's not.
It's just a fun
Yeah.
one.
All right.
So Zeo also has its Morphin time, but they all
Yes.
have like Zeo Ranger 5, Red, and all that.
Right.
I don't know that necessarily counts. But moving on after that, we have Turbo with Shift into Turbo. Which I'm going to level with you. As much as I'm not a fan of Turbo, as much as me back at the age of 9 or whatever did have a problem with the cars, Shift into Turbo is a good Morphin call.
It is. Like
It is a good call.
It's I think both the morphing like the sequence of them act of this the gestures and the morphing sequence itself those are usually pretty good. Like I like the well you can't see it of course, but like give me 1 second. So like I like the gestures with the uh,
The
it's hard to
Turbo
say.
Morphers come with a little key thing you stick in.
Yeah, I like the the little hand gestures of moving their arms and then inserting the key into the morpher.
Or putting it behind their hand.
Right.
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 Oh my! Once you notice it, you can never stop.
Right.
All right.
Dante, Turbo, what do you think?
I think it's a good morphing call. Thank
The
God
music
we
is
got rid of it's more. Thank God we got rid of that. It's morphin time, but
the music makes it for me. The little like the da, 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 da,
Yeah, I love the music too. The music is
the
Turbo
little
theme's
the little
good.
the little the guitar cue during the morphing sequence. That's what makes it for
okay.
me.
Like
All
you'll
right.
never hear me slandering the music of Turbo.
Oh, never.
Okay. Okay.
The
So
Morphin Dolls. Next up
okay.
is
Well,
Power Rangers in Space. Let's rock it!
now that's a cool one. That's a very cool one.
I like it.
I've always had mixed feelings on it. On the one hand, it's a really good pun, and I like it. But on the other
Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
being only 3 syllables long has always felt a bit off to me. Like, it's not super distracting, I get used to it, but I feel like morphing calls work better when they have at least 4 syllables to work with.
Right. Right. It's fine. It's not like it's what it I think what it lacks in like it's not the most memorable, but I think that it kind of makes up for it with being like with being quick and snappy, like let's rock it. Um
Yeah,
like it's less the call and this is another one where it's not so much the call, but like the actual call, but the the morphing sequence, like then like the pressing of the buttons and the transformation sequence itself. Which I okay, I
Um,
forget. Did they make that for the show, or is that for or is the morphing footage from Mega Ranger? I have to look into
the
that.
morphing footage is mostly from Mega Ranger, but
All right,
there is an edit.
what is
Like
it?
there's like a a box that says morphing complete that goes over where it used to say Mega Red ready. Or Mega
Okay,
Blue
that's
ready.
it. That's okay. That's it. That's the difference. I had a feeling that that's what was throwing me off. Like whether or not the like everything else looks like Mega Ranger from the aesthetic, like the design of the morphing sequence. It's
The
the
focus on the blue objects in their helmets.
right.
not to mention, it gave us like VR Trooper vibes.
Huh.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to keep this short because we don't want to make it 2 hours like last time. So,
You don't want to make it 2 hours.
I don't want to.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry to be,
I
I'm
kid.
sorry
I
to cut
kid.
you off like that, but we'll, all right, we'll have to finish doing favorite morphing calls next time. Next time
Oh,
we
we
do
out of
this,
time?
yeah, because this was the last topic, I believe, and we don't want to make it too long.
I mean, I feel like getting through the rest of the morphing calls would only take like 10, maybe 15 minutes tops.
Right.
If that.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't
I
want.
mean, we already started. Might as well just finish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead and finish the last. Go ahead and finish up, and then we'll end it right here.
Okay. The next one is for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Go Galactic!
This one I'm actually this one I quite like. It's again quick, snappy, cool morphing sequence, and well, yeah, it's mostly the fact that it's quick and snappy. Those are probably the things that I like most about my morphing calls. It's also very catchy too.
He just
It is, although I noticed when I was watching Lost Galaxy that half the time they said it, it really felt like they were kind of phoning it in. Like, go Galactic.
Yeah,
Maybe that was just me. But it's not my favorite because I tend to prefer ones that are a bit more
All right, hold on a minute, guys.
iconic.
I'll be right back.
Um, I prefer ones that have a bit more iconicness to them, I guess is the way to say it.
right.
I don't know. It's not, if you hear it in a vacuum, you probably wouldn't think it was Power Rangers related.
So
Although,
that
although
feel
in,
more Power Rangers-y, if that makes sense.
in fairness, I suppose you could also say that about Shift into Turbo. So I don't know.
Right.
Our host seems determined to wrap this up expediently, so I guess we'll keep going.
Right.
All right.
After Lost Galaxy is Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Lightspeed Rescue! I like the way they say it.
Yeah, that's the thing. The way they say it.
It's very. It feels like a paramilitary organization, say basically announcing it loudly, which is what
Yeah,
they are.
yeah. It sounds like them announcing like a formation or a tactic.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the word? It's utilitarian. Like it gets the like they're not here to be flashy and bombastic. They're a government trained unit. This is more or less just like a formation, like
Hmm.
quick quick to the point and not quick to the point and not meant to be stylish.
That said, it is maybe slightly too utilitarian because the morphing call is literally just the title.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah.
I don't know what else. What I'm not sure what else they could have gone with. May I don't. The time for light
Admittedly,
speed
I
times
don't
two.
know how to make up good morphing calls. This one feels like it just maybe could have. It makes me feel that they didn't stay up all night on this one.
Right.
Oh well. After light speed is time force. Time force.
Yeah. I
I,
like
li-
this
I,
one.
Yeah,
li-
This one was fun.
I like that one. Like
it's
it's
great.
just a good play on words. I don't have too much else
Okay.
to say. I just like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess we'll
Next up,
just.
Wild
next up
access,
is Power Rangers Wild Force with Wild Access.
which is basically just the morphing call for Gal Ranger, but just replace Gal with Wild.
Yeah.
It's
And
fine. It's fine. I like it.
That's
it's
fine.
fine, yeah.
It's okay.
After that, Power Rangers Ninja Storm with Ninja Storm Ranger Form, ha!
Or Thunders. Wait, this one, and this might be
Thunderstorm
this,
Ranger Form, ha! And somewhat more awkwardly, Samurai Storm Ranger Storm, ha!
right.
I
And
drank all my water already.
right. And although this might be my bias showing, but this morphing call is personally my favorite, and not just because it's from the first season of Power Rangers I watched, but it's instantly memorable, it's catchy, and it's like quick to the point. It's like it feels very Power Rangers-y, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Quick.
and I like the I like the motions they do while doing the call. It just has a fun rhythm to it.
And it's very reminiscent of like the original of like the thing they do with of the original Morphin Call where they raise their hands out where they like raise their hands out. Yeah, it's just it's good. It's a good one. These are I probably my second favorites. We'll get to my first very soon.
Okay, and on that note, next up is Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Dino Thunder, power up! Ha! Which, I mean, it's fine. They say it with a nice amount of energy. It's probably not my favorite. It's fine, I guess. Your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts on it. I actually like this call. The morphing call was kind of fun. It gives me back to Mighty Morphin Power Ranger vibes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Despite being a legacy season of it.
Yes, and after that is Power Rangers SPD with SPD Emergency.
This one is my favorite.
It's really good.
It's great.
As
It's catchy. It's
It
brief.
has a rhythm. It
And-
rhymes.
Yes,
They-
and like
It fits the theme of the show
right.
because they say it in the same way that someone would say "freeze, police,"
Yes.
and they hold out their morpher like a badge.
Yeah.
It's
SPD emergency. Yeah. This one's my favorite, hands down.
It's a good one.
Right. Honestly, I find that more times than not, the best morphing calls or not are the one. I noticed that like the best or most popular morphing calls, or at least the ones that I tend to like the most, are the ones that like have some kind of rhyme or alliteration.
Mm-hmm.
all right.
See, after
Next
that
we-
is Power Rangers Mystic Force with Magical Source, Mystic Force. I'm
Now,
gonna level
this
with
one-
you. first time I ever heard this one, I thought it was dumb. It's grown on me, but I still don't think I'm in love with it.
Right.
I actually like that call. I like how it pops up like.
Oh,
Yeah.
the pose is really good.
Yeah.
Like once I actually start to watch the series, it's a good setup. It's nice and mystical and magical.
Yes, it is very beautiful. Can't lie.
Like it has grown on me. Like I said,
It has. It has.
I probably wouldn't rank it among my favorites. Is all. And first impressions count for a lot, I guess. Next is Operation Overdrive with Overdrive Accelerate.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like the thing they do with their arm to make the little wheel spin, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like that. It almost gave me Turbo vibes, though.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that.
All right, next.
Next is Power Rangers Jungle Fury. Jungle Beast Spirit Unleashed.
I like this one.
Yeah, this one.
The morphing call is maybe a bit bulky, but the kata they do with it is really fun.
It's the kata and the way they put the shades on. That's what sells it.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually love the background of the morphing call. It's very beautiful. Fits the vibe of their animal spirit as well. Next, we got Power Rangers RPM with RPM Getting Gear.
If I may, RPM Getting Gear.
It's fine. It's to the point. I like the call more than I like the morphing sequence itself. Now, to be clear, the morphing sequence itself isn't bad. It's just it's fine. It's fine.
It always bugged me that we never got to see it done individually with Rangers. Like the first time they used it, it was already a group morph thing.
Right.
And like I actually do like the morphing sequence.
It's fine. It's good.
The call itself is. I enjoy it because it has a rhythm to it.
Yes.
Probably not my favorites, and on some level, you do run into the fact that the motif of the weaponry, the Rangers and their Zords and all that, don't really have much to do with the season itself. And so it's not exactly like a shift into Turbo, where that season was aggressively cars, for better or for worse. It was cars.
Right.
And we don't have too much in the way of After that, we have Samurai with Go-Go Samurai.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't
Samurais
like it.
are Go-Go. I'm sorry, I'm not going to put up energy for this in these next ones.
Yeah, they did. Why put the effort to say it when they clearly didn't come up with the effort when they didn't put the effort to come up with it.
And then Go-Go Megaforce when they started saying it's morphin' time again.
Ugh.
What did they even say for Dino Charge?
I think it was unleash the power.
Unleash the power.
Yes.
It was. It was the closest to fine it's done, but I was not big on it.
But we forgot Megaforce with Go-Go Megaforce or Super Mega Mode.
Yeah, not much more to say about that.
Yeah. So Dino Charge, yes, is unleash the power.
What did they say with Ninja Steel?
Ninja Spin?
Yeah, Ninja Spin.
Oh. That's fine. It's something.
Yeah.
I also have already forgotten Beast Morphers, Morphing Call.
Activate Beast Power, yeah. I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. Yeah.
And finally, that brings us up to our current day with Dino Fury, which was it's Morphin Time, Link to Morphin Grid. Which, meh.
Yeah.
It's fine, I guess.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm sorry, I haven't really enjoyed any of the Morphin calls since RPM.
You're right. You know,
it's morphing time in every morphing call, though. I mean, I get it's a cool catchphrase and all, but come on. Why can't you just say activate beast power
or just say let's I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I kind of prefer when they just said ready, and then they just do the morphing call. It just it just that's just me. If it were it up, depending on what they do after this, I am really hoping that they put more. I'm hoping that the next that they. I am hoping that for whatever they do next, that there's a more spiffy morphing call, and maybe if not retiring the phrase morphing time altogether for that one season, maybe at least not have them say it every episode.
Yes. Yes.
It,
Excellent.
again, it's not. It's never going to be a make or break thing. If this is just how things are from now on, I will live. It's not going to kill me, but I would definitely like to see some more creativity and that sort of thing moving forward.
All right. Woo.
So Dante, which one is your favorite?
Which one is my favorite? Yes, I technically grew up with It's Morphin' Time, but I grew up with both that and Time Force because those were the two. Because at the time, Time Force was the main season that was going on at that point. And Mighty Morphin because my mother actually loved Power Rangers, and she mostly loved the original. She always loved It's Morphin' Time.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, yeah. So yeah, now I guess it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I believe we're done now.
I think so, sir.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of the Power Ranger Podcast.
I do have to bring up, we never did do the whole thing with the Samurai's Journey like we said we were going to do last week.
We can do that next week, especially considering that the third part of that part 3 aired about next week a few years ago. We can just
crap.
We can just we'll just have to do like the bulk of next episode is going to be about the Samurai's Journey.
Yeah,
that fine with everyone?
Yeah,
that is fine. That is fine. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of the Power Ranger Podcast. If you guys like this episode, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to get notified every time I upload a video or when I go live. All right, thank you, JWR, for coming out.
Of course.
Thank you, Dragon Raider X9.
Happy to be here.
Oh, happy Memorial Day to everybody. We hope you enjoy a nice dinner with your family. I know I will. So what's going to happen next week? Well, besides the Samurai's Journey arc.
I do believe we have the mid-season finale of Dino Fury to go over.
Yeah.
Yep. Mid-season finale. Yep. And until then, till next time, may the power protect you.
Always.
Always.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.